Welcome to the Eventful podcast, where real conversations meet big ideas.
This is where the real journey gets shared.
It's honest,
It's inspiring.
and it's always eventful. Welcome to the Eventful podcast, presented by Prospect Events with Jessica and Meredith. Today, we're going to do another solo episode, and we are going to just focus on our growth and our success. We already went through our whole origin story and how we started, but we are almost 7 years past that now. So what have the last 7 years looked like? How do we measure our success and how we've grown and how that's happened? And maybe we dive more into business partnership and what that relationship looks like as well.
Sounds like a plan.
So let's do a deeper dive into doing what it takes. We've already, in our first episode, we covered our early difficulties with the pandemic, but let's talk a little bit about, we've also talked this season, and we'll be talking more about there's never the right time. It's always, you start when you start and you navigate as you go, and you can try to plan and have a business plan and have an idea of what your approach is, but you really don't know what's going to happen until you start. So I think something that we have in common is our work ethic, and we just do what it takes to get it done.
Yep.
GSD, that's our team motto, get shit done. We looked into getting hats made, but it hasn't happened yet. But yeah, why don't you go into the early days and your backyard and putting things together and doing what it takes and what it means to us now doing what it takes.
Yeah. So I know in our previous episode, we talked about a lot about the pandemic only because it was very instrumental in the growth of our business in the beginning of our business, because we just so happened to start our business 4 months before. And so I think with any business, including ours, whether or not the pandemic had happened, sometimes you have a vision of what your business is going to be and you have to pivot and you have to be open to change and new direction. I think that's what great entrepreneurs have. Like you often see different businesses that started as one thing and they've turned into something else. And I think that kind of happened with ours in some way. So let's look back into early 2020 when we moved to doing virtual events. We were trying to figure out the logistics behind getting people things for their virtual events. As an example, we would do these cocktail making classes, and we just had to do what it took. So we would order all the supplies, and I had a backyard or a place in Brooklyn. And so we would lay out all the materials, pack all the boxes by hand, create all the shipping labels, schedule a UPS pickup, ship all the clients their kits, send them their tracking numbers, track everything. And we just you don't know these things when you start, but you just have to do things to make it work.
I think you carried to UPS around the corner during that time, probably thousands.
Probably thousands, yeah. Because at one point we were doing 3 events a night, remember? We'd have to stagger them. Jess would be on one, I'd be on another, and then there was one later for Pacific time, and then we would both be on that. So
I'll never forget when we did some global events as well, and we did a huge, I think it was like 200 people or something, global cocktail making class, and we actually had to split it in 2 groups based on time zone. But I remember I was living in Florida at that time, setting my alarm and waking up at 3 a.m. because the Australia region was doing their cocktail making class. And I mean, we were working weekends, we were working every night, sun up to sundown, but we were just so excited that we figured out a way to make it work. And there was a need for what we were doing. So that's just one example of doing what it takes.
Yeah. And I think we talked a little bit about this also in our first episode, but as an entrepreneur, you have to be flexible and pliable. And I think whether or not it was the virtual stuff or in person, we have boundaries, of course. We really don't say no to things. Even if we haven't tried something before, we try it. And we've learned now a lot of things that we do in events are things that we never maybe had experience doing before, but now it's just a part of all of our events. I'm trying to even think of an example, but you just have to try things and learn it. And then it just becomes second nature almost to implement it.
And that goes with events, but I also think it just goes with running a business, like talking about making your first hire. I think that's something that I'm really proud of that we've done is we took no investments. Our business has been completely bootstrapped and we own the entire business, every percent we
Yeah.
own, and that I'm really proud of that. And we were lean from the very, very beginning. We're still lean, but we operated on a shoestring from day one. And it actually worked out really well because we have a business model where we can do that. It was just the two of us in Zoom, essentially. Well, actually, you and I each put in $1,000 when we started. That was my last $1,000.
1,500.
I put in 1,000. God.
No, I think it was 1,500.
I don't know.
Maybe I'm wrong, but
That was a big investment for me a long time ago, but we since have made that back, luckily. But yeah, I mean, we were very lean and we still are very lean. I would say a service-based business that's based mainly online, even though it's interesting because events are in person,
Mhm.
but our business itself takes place online and all of our calls and everything. So we completely, as mentioned, bootstrapped our business from the beginning. We still do. And I think hiring your first employee, I mean, that's a leap. It's when you're talking to business owners before you do it, like somebody who's more experienced, they always say, oh, you have to hire people. You can't do it all. And I think we learned that, but it took us 3 years to hire our first employee, I think, right? 2 to 3 years. And she's amazing. She's still with us, but that's a risk and you kind of just have to hire and hope it works out. I mean, that's all you can do, right? It's just like taking a new job. You just have to go for it and you don't ever really
Yeah.
know what's around the corner, but you have to know that you're going to know how to manage them and
Yeah.
navigate that. And luckily it's worked out really well and we love our team and they help us so much. So
And we knew when it was the right time because we had other points where we had toyed with the idea and we just knew in our gut when it was the right time. And I think it was the perfect timing when we did it.
absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about our roles in the business
Mhm.
and how they have grown and changed over time. I think to start out, going back to what we were talking about earlier is you just kind of have to go for it. I think in the first probably 2.5 to 3 years of our business, you and I just we both did everything. That's really all we could do.
Mhm.
We were both just staying afloat, doing everything that we could, and we got it all done. I mean, having 2 people is definitely better in a lot of ways than having
Yeah.
1 because you essentially have double the manpower, woman power. Let's talk about the best things about having a business partner.
Mhm.
That's one of the best things. You have double. Luckily, we are on the same page about, I'd say 95% of the time
Mhm.
we're on the same page about business
Mhm.
decisions, about everything from what type of software we're gonna use in running our business or certain
Mhm.
business practices to deciding how we're gonna plan an event or deal with a client issue or deal with a team issue. We're pretty much always on the same page, but we knew that from working
Yeah.
together before.
I think it was important because as mentioned earlier, we it's not like we started out some co-founders are just recommended to be co-founders. I've spoken to people that are like, "Oh, the VC fund is like you guys would work really well together." But we had already worked together for a
Mhm.
long time, so knew how to work with each other. But we also have strengths and weaknesses, and we also have things that both of us are good at the same things, and I think that works well. I've never gone into business by myself. I know a lot of people that have. I mean, my sister has her own business. Some of our other people that are coming on our podcast are solo business owners. So I don't have anything to compare to in that
Mm.
regard. However, I know for me, I don't think I would be good at doing it alone just because I like to have someone else to bounce ideas
Mhm.
off of. And also I'm not good at everything. So whoever I work with can be good at the things that maybe are not my strengths. So that's at least how I feel. But
Do you think the hardest part about trying to run something on yourself is not having somebody to bounce ideas off of, or what do you think would be the biggest challenge?
I think it's the motivation too. I've spoken to my sister about it and she'll be actually on a podcast of ours, but it's really, I think just you can keep kind of procrastinating if you don't have someone else sometimes. I'm not saying that she does that, but that's an example. You just have to be really, really self motivated. And I am a self motivated person, but I don't know if it would be, at least for me, that's what I think about. But once again, I don't have, maybe I would be good at it and I just don't know because I've never done it.
Yeah, I would say for that's definitely a a key thing. I would say to your point earlier, just having somebody to bounce ideas off of because typically we're on the same page, but sometimes I'll have an idea. I'm like, "Should we do this?" And Meredith, she pulls out she kind of extrapolates the plan and pulls out the potential issues that we could face. And either we solve those together, or we go back to the drawing board and we start over again and come up with a new solution. And I think vice versa, sometimes I'll have an idea about something and we didn't even think about doing it that way. I can imagine being in business with a difficult business partner or somebody who you weren't on the same page with business-wise all the time. That would be really, really challenging. I can't imagine having that issue on top of trying to run and grow a business. That would be really hard to deal with, I think.
Yeah. And I think to add to the humanity aspect of it, I mean, yes, it's transactional in many ways, but we're all human at the end of the day, right? And we have feelings and things go on outside of work. I mean, there's personal things that happen all the time there. Probably in a later episode, we had a little bit of a rough year on my end last year, but that stuff, we're human, right? And so we have also a good relationship in the sense where we sometimes we know how to put that stuff aside, but we're also open with each other about saying, you know what, I just need to let you know this may have happened. If I seem a little distracted, XYZ happened or
Mhm.
something. And I think that's really important just to be open and honest with things that are not always about work as well. And like I said, we're all human sometimes. I was listening to the Mel Robbins podcast and she was talking about how you spend more time with your colleagues than you do with your own family
Yeah.
or your partner. And that is very much true, I think.
Absolutely. We're if we're not on Zoom calls 24/7, we're texting on the weekends and doing all kinds of things, right? Because running a business never stops. I don't think there's a vacation where I really haven't worked in the past probably 3 years where I haven't been online at some point or on a call at some point and dealing with something. But I also think what you're talking about is another huge benefit of having a business partner
Hmm.
if they're the right business
Yeah.
partner. But because if you're doing it alone and you're not yourself one day, you're it.
Yeah.
Like, you have to come in
Yeah.
with and we have to do that anyway, right? With a client services face or face for our team, like, all this stuff is happening in the background, and we just have to get through the day, or we have to get through the week, or we just have to get shit done,
Yeah.
GSD, like we say, but
Yeah. And I think having mutual respect for each other, and if someone needs to take some time for themselves and the other person can step in while
Mhm.
that happens, I think that's also really important because as mentioned, life gets in the way sometimes. I mean, we've done a great job to kind of be able to compartmentalize those things, but family first always, and we preach that to our employees as well, but we can always help each other out if need be.
Not only that, but running a business can also be an emotional roller coaster. It's very
That's for sure.
personal.
Especially ours.
It's yeah, I mean, and that kind of goes into what we were saying about like we're always touching base with each other, whether it's the weekend or we're on vacation or whatever, because it's so intertwined with your personal life and your identity that it's really, really hard to separate those things from a financial standpoint, from a time standpoint. I mean, every decision that we make personally impacts us from small to large, whether it's what days we book an event because certain things are happening on certain dates or how much we close a deal for. It's so personal that I think to run and own a business, it takes a lot of strength to be able to separate your personal life from your professional life as much as you possibly can. It's really hard.
So, in starting your business, what are some things you wish you had known and what you would have done differently?
What I wish I would have known. How deep do I go here?
As deep as you
Who's
want.
gonna be listening to this? Something that we touched on in an earlier episode, I wish that I had well, it's kind of a loaded question or a loaded answer because I wish I had known how hard it would be. Again, going back to how intertwined it is with your personal life, how it's just such a big responsibility. And once you have a team, it's an even bigger responsibility. And just in our line of work, managing budgets, managing last minute things that happen at events, and managing clients. And our job is to make our clients look good to their guests, to their team members, to their bosses. That in and of itself is a lot of pressure and a lot of responsibility, which I think we handle very, very
Mhm.
well. But I think when you're starting a business, we had the skill set. We are good at
Mhm.
planning events and executing them. So we knew that we would be good at that, right? But there's so much that comes along with starting a business and running a business, and your ego is so tied to it, and not
Mhm.
closing a deal, which happens
Mhm.
every now and then. It's
Mhm.
so exciting when you do. It makes closing those
Mhm.
deals that you do close so much sweeter and so much more exciting, but I think just the humility of that and getting, I mean, whether it's the pandemic or it's few and far between now that we have huge lessons learned because we've been through so
Mhm.
much, but it's just such a journey, and it's so emotional
Mhm.
and hard sometimes, which I didn't even, I mean, when you're working in-house in the corporate world, it's different because you
Yeah.
have a huge team and you have a boss and you have people relying on
Mhm.
you, but when you're relying only on yourself, I think it's it's so much more intense. So I wish I had known that, but I don't think there's any way that you could know that
Yeah.
until you just start.
Yeah.
So that's mine, I think.
What would you do differently?
What would I do differently? Not start an events business before a global pandemic. No, that worked to our benefit. We've already talked about that. I think what would I do differently? It's so hard to think about because it just happens the way it happens as we discussed. Like, it just, you don't
Yeah.
really know what's around the corner. You just take every day as it comes. Really wouldn't have done anything differently. I think every single day of running this business, every week, every year, I mean, it's like what they say about raising kids. The days are long and the years are short. I cannot believe we're here. I think I actually, what I would have done differently personally is I would have believed in us a little bit more. I can't it's looking back at myself 7 years ago, I cannot believe that we've had the success that we have had. It's been amazing. I'm so grateful for it. It has changed our lives, and I would tell myself starting out many years ago what I would tell every single person trying to start a business, that you should believe in yourself because you have no idea where it's going to take you and the success that you could potentially have by betting on yourself. I think that's the biggest thing because we were just trying so hard to get through. Every single dollar that we made was a win. Every single client that we signed was a win, large or small. And
Mhm.
I'm just so proud of us. I don't think I ever really thought that we would grow to this point. So I think that's something I would have had a little more confidence. Looking back, if you knew what you know now, what would you have done differently?
I think what I would have done differently is something that I still work on now, is living more in the moment and enjoying even the small wins or the day to day. I think just in life, I mean, I work on a mindset change in general in life
Mhm,
that I want to implement more into my work.
mhm,
But every day, as you're mentioning too, it's like in the day to day, it feels like things are just kind of going slow sometimes, but life passes really quickly.
mm.
And so I think it's really important as you grow and scale a business that you, of course, things are always going to get stressful, but really live in the moment. And like what you were saying, that's really important is believing in yourself. That kind of ties into it. But even when we get a small win, it's still a win and the feeling of it still feels really good. Or seeing the production of your event come to life, whether it's a very small dinner to a large scale conference, just really taking it in and embracing it is something that I would have done differently in the beginning. I don't feel like I had, or even to this day, I really tried to work on that and enjoy it more.
I'm interested to hear what your definition of success was before starting the business and what your definition of success is now.
So before we started our business,
Mhm,
I think my definition of success was has a few layers to it, right? One is monetarily, particularly as a woman, to be financially independent. I was raised by a single mom, and she always taught me to be self sufficient. So, monetarily, I would say that. I think also success isn't always money, too, right? It's doing something that you doing, that you enjoy waking up doing, and that you're excited about. Because, we mentioned previously, you spend a lot of time in your job. And so, if you don't wake up enjoying that, that would not be great. So some of the stuff might have changed a little bit, but some hasn't changed. And I think before we launched our business, I think my idea of success was also having a business that would succeed. I know that like that would be running, and I never, kind of going back to what you were saying before, I guess I didn't believe in myself enough to think that my business would still be here, I guess. But really just waking up and being proud and having my business still on the ground, I think was what I thought success was. The things that have changed now would be not necessarily all of it. I mean, I still think that being financially independent, particularly as a woman, is important. But I also think my mindset has changed a bit. Having a balanced life. And of course, my business is very important to me and a huge part of my life, but also keeping relationships with whether you have a partner, friends, or family is also extremely important, and not necessarily having business be 100% all encompassing, even though it is, and it's such a big part of my life. I think balance, I guess, is the only thing that I would change. But I do think that everything that I said before having business is also part of still
Mhm.
my current view of things. And I also, to add to that, working with brands that I'm proud of and like securing business with those companies has been on my manifestation board, all of my vision boards, all of those things, like gutting some of the logos that I've always wanted has been really empowering, but also something that I thought of successful before and currently think of as well.
I love it.
And how about you?
How about me? I think a little bit of the same thing. I think before it's also different ages, right? W When I was working internally in the corporate world before, my definition of success was definitely obviously salary range, equity, things that come along with the startup world. I also was very excited about things like travel and getting to produce high budget events and having a good portfolio as an event. I think I was a director at the time when we started our company. In that world, those are how I define success. I think now, well, starting our business, as I mentioned before, you just when you just start, and it's scary, and you know that there are going to be challenges that you don't understand. I think you see that when you start, you see the possibility of failure. You also see the possibility of in your mind at that time, how you, let's say, qualify or quantify success, but you really don't know actually how far you can take that. So, being financially independent, same thing as what you were saying. I was raised by my parents who were divorced. And during that time of growing up, that's when I really realized I want to make sure that I'm financially
Yeah.
independent one day. However, I think I never really saw working at a corporate job as being financially independent because I think there's 2 things. There's being financially independent from a partner, but then there's also being financially independent from the corporate world and sort of making your own path in that way. So I think in it now in where we are in our business now, I see that as
Yeah.
success, not being dependent on a boss or a CEO or the stability of a company or the funding of a company or the growth of of an external company that's hired me. Our growth and stability and financial security is dependent on us,
Yeah.
which is huge. And I think personally, my goal was always to buy my mom a house and a car. And I finally made that happen last year. So
Yeah.
that's a big personal milestone for me. So I think just really it involves taking care of your family and taking care of those people who you love, who have taken care of you for so long, and being able to pay that back. So I think right now in my life, that's how I define success. So outside of closing deals and quantifying success, as we mentioned, which is always very exciting and like a personal win for sure, I'd love to know a moment or some of the moments throughout our journey of business, being business owners and growing the business that you saw
Mhm.
as success that weren't related to anything
Yeah.
financially.
I definitely have a few. I don't like the term validation because I think it has a negative context. However, sometimes in day-to-day life, we're just kind of going through it, and we're not we don't necessarily see things through other lenses besides our own. And I can't tell you how many times I've run into someone, whether it's a friend or someone through the industry, that has been like, "Wow, I'm so impressed following your work and following your growth over the last several years you've had your business and just seeing that other people notice those things, right? I think that I've had a few aha moments where I've, ran into someone or caught up with someone that maybe I haven't spoken to in a long time. And they're like, wow, I saw that you guys did the conference for XYZ company, or that you're working with all of these amazing brands. And it sometimes hits me that, wow, we're doing that. And kind of going back to a question that I answered earlier about living more in the moment and being grateful and having gratitude for the things that have happened, like for being able to work with brands, bring things to life, doing something that I truly love and having a creative outlet with the type of work that we do. I think that has been a sign of success, is seeing our work out there in the world. It's kind of crazy sometimes, or I'll we'll be on site at an event and, we have these amazing build outs, or we're seeing these incredible speakers from brands that I admire, on a panel or keynote speaker. And I'm like, wow, we put this together. So I think that's a sign of success, in my opinion. It's not a monetary success, but seeing your something that you've worked so hard come to life and for other people to see and experience is huge to me.
I would say that my answer is the same.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Let's talk about an eventful moment, since the theme of this has been growing together, leading together, and sort of those milestones along the way. Let's talk about an eventful moment that we had together. We probably have different ones, but I'd love to know what are some of the most, or maybe what's that most eventful, memorable moment that comes to mind.
Okay.
A lot to choose from.
Yeah, there's a lot. I'm just trying to think.
So the first one that comes to mind, which we actually have a video of, was our first party, first event, in-person event, really ever that we did for our company, which took place. Really, it wasn't even at the end of the pandemic. It was probably a year before it all ended, but it was the first in-person event back, and it was an exciting win for us because I think really this was a few years into our business, and that was the day when we pulled that off, and it was such a beautiful party and it was such a celebration. Like, it was almost like we were part of the party because it was such a celebratory moment just in general, because I think that was the day when it actually, because we had so many events get canceled, and the fact that it didn't get canceled and I actually flew to New York and we pulled that off together was actually really also really close to my birthday, so I saw it as the best birthday present. That I just remember feeling like, "We're gonna be okay. This is gonna work, and we're gonna be okay." And I also think it was so fun for all the clients and everybody who was there. All the vendors were so excited to be a part of it because nobody had had any business in so long. So it was just this feeling, instead of a feeling of fear, which I think everybody in the world obviously had, and we, of course, had about our business, and everybody had leading up to any type of event, because people try to go back in person so many times. We
Yeah.
had an event in Hawaii that we planned the entire event, and then the entire thing got canceled,
Yeah.
which was just such a blow. I think it was just such a gratifying feeling, and it was so exciting. It's like, we can do this, and we're gonna
Mhm.
do this, and everything's gonna be
Mhm.
okay. So that's what I remember that stands out.
I think for me, we had in person had picked up, but it wasn't, full blown at that point. But was when we did the user conference for Dataiku in 2022. Well, let me actually take a step back. Securing the contract for that was definitely the biggest win we had had since we had started our business. We were at Amazon Web Services conference in Vegas, which was also big for us. That was the first large industry conference that had come back during the pandemic. I remember it was fully masked. Like, I think there was 35,000 people, but we're like, okay, like, I think events are going to come back. Like, it was that feeling. And then on top of that, we had, a final call with our contact there to get the contract to do a user conference for one of our great clients, Dataiku, if you're listening. And that was amazing for us. And that was when it was just myself and Jess as the core team. We had actually, I believe, hired Gabby towards the end, but she wasn't starting until even after that. We were so far down the planning. Fast forward, the event was, I think we had 5 or 6 months to plan the event. And we produced it in Spring Studios in New York, and just me and you walking. I mean, we worked so hard on that event. I mean, everything, but with just two people, basically. It was really hard, but walking in there and seeing it come to life and thinking, wow, we just did that ourselves. Everything from the decor to the audio visuals, stage build outs, catering. We had Rolodex of vendors in New York. Don't get me wrong, we've been working in New York for a long time, but to kind of what Jess was saying about that other party we did, like a lot of the really big conferences hadn't come back. So being able to work with them, and everyone was just so happy to have the work. And walking in, seeing people attend the conference, seeing every seat filled was definitely my aha moment. Like, wow, we've made it.
Yeah, I agree on that one. Also, when we were planning that, I remember our client lead on that, Rob, he was like, I don't know if 100 people are going to show up. I don't know if 1,000 people are going to show up. We didn't even know what the appetite was for people coming in person. And, obviously we had the hand sanitizer everywhere, the optional masks everywhere. It was a tough time still. But to Meredith's point, coming in and seeing all the people flow in, there's a line around the block. We couldn't believe
We
it.
had to order extra catering on site. Like, we're
Yeah.
begging the caterer
Yeah.
essentially to like make more food if they had back stock. And like, it was just crazy because, to what you're saying, we didn't know the appetite people had for in person at that point. It was still very much on the cusp. I remember in New York State, you still had to show Vax cards. So it was, we're like, let's see if people even want to do this. And it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I think at all our events before that we had to show Vax
Yeah,
cards too.
definitely
That was like a
the Volta
requirement.
one.
And AWS. We are obviously so proud to be where we are. We're so grateful. Obviously, we've worked so hard, our team has worked so hard, but also we're so grateful for our loyal clients who are now our friends. We're basically a part of their team, and we have their back. They have ours. And yeah, it's taken a village to get us to where we are now. And hopefully we've helped some of our client companies in the process get to
Yeah.
where they are now by
Yeah.
planning their experiences for them. So thanks to everyone. Thanks, Meredith.
Thanks, Jess.
Thanks for listening to the Eventful podcast. If you loved this episode, follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and catch us on Instagram at the handle @the Eventful Pod. See you next week.